In the quiet moments of life, it is easy to believe that our mind is strong and stable. But the true test of the mind appears when life suddenly places us under pressure. A difficult situation appears, emotions rise, and the mind begins to feel scattered and restless. Many people react quickly in these moments and later regret the decisions they made. Buddhism teaches that the difference between wisdom and chaos is not the situation itself, but the condition of the mind observing it. A trained mind remains calm even when everything around it feels uncertain. In this video, you will discover 7 powerful Buddhist lessons that will help you develop that kind of mind, allowing you to think clearly, remain calm, and act wisely even in the most stressful moments of life. 1. Pause before the mind reacts. When pressure appears, the mind naturally wants to react immediately because it tries to escape the discomfort of the moment as quickly as possible. Many people speak too quickly, decide too quickly, or act impulsively when they feel stress building inside them. Buddhism teaches that the small space between stimulus and response is where wisdom lives. Most mistakes in life happen because people react before they fully understand the situation. Their emotions take control and their clarity disappears. A simple pause can completely change the way you respond to a difficult moment. When you pause for a few seconds, your mind begins to slow down and your emotions start to settle. Instead of reacting blindly, you begin observing what is actually happening. Buddhist monks often train themselves to pause before responding to anything difficult, because this moment of awareness allows wisdom to guide their response instead of emotion. The next time you feel pressure rising in your life, take one slow breath and allow yourself a brief pause. That small moment can create enough space for clarity to return. 2. Return to the breath to stabilize the mind. In Buddhist teachings, the breath is considered the anchor of the mind. It is always present, always steady, and always available to bring the mind back to calmness. When a person is under pressure, one of the first things that changes is their breathing. It becomes fast, shallow, and irregular. This signals the body that something is wrong, which increases tension, anxiety, and confusion. As a result, the mind becomes even more restless, and it becomes harder to think clearly. Buddhism teaches that by simply returning your attention to your breath, you can quickly calm both the body and the mind. When you slow your breathing and take deeper, more controlled breaths, the body begins to relax and the nervous system starts to settle down. This natural calming effect allows the mind to regain stability and focus. Instead of letting your thoughts run wildly in every direction, gently bring your awareness to the feeling of your breath. Notice the air entering your nose, filling your lungs, and leaving your body again. You do not need to force anything or control every thought. Just allow your attention to rest on the rhythm of your breathing. After a few slow breaths, the mind begins to settle like muddy water, slowly becoming clear again. When the mind becomes calm, problems no longer feel as overwhelming, and you can begin to see the situation with greater clarity. This is why Buddhist meditation always begins with breathing awareness, because a calm breath naturally leads to a calm and stable mind. 3. Observe the situation without emotional attachment. Pressure often feels overwhelming because people become emotionally attached to what might happen. When a difficult situation appears, the mind immediately begins creating fears and worries. You may start thinking about failure, judgment from others, or losing something important. These emotional thoughts quickly cloud your ability to think clearly. Instead of seeing the situation as it truly is, the mind exaggerates the problem and turns it into something much bigger and more frightening. Buddhism teaches the practice of mindful observation, which means learning to step back mentally and observe the situation without becoming trapped inside your emotions. Imagine looking at the situation from the outside, almost like watching a scene in a movie. When you observe things this way, you begin to separate the facts of the situation from the fears your mind is creating. A helpful practice is to ask yourself a simple question: what is actually happening right now? Not what might happen tomorrow, not what your fears are imagining, but what is truly happening in this moment. When you focus only on the present reality, many situations suddenly become much clearer and easier to understand. By observing without emotional attachment, the mind becomes calmer and more balanced. You stop reacting out of fear or anxiety, and instead you begin responding with awareness and wisdom. This simple shift allows you to see solutions and possibilities that a stressed and emotional mind would normally miss. 4. Accept the moment instead of resisting it. One of the biggest reasons people lose clarity under pressure is because they begin resisting the moment they are experiencing. When something difficult happens, the mind immediately starts fighting reality. It begins thinking, "This shouldn't be happening," or "Why is this happening to me?" This inner resistance creates even more stress and confusion. Instead of helping you deal with the situation, your mind becomes trapped in frustration, anger, or anxiety. The more you resist what is happening, the more mental energy you waste fighting something that is already real. Buddhism teaches that acceptance of the present moment is a powerful way to bring the mind back to clarity. Acceptance does not mean that you like the situation or that you are giving up. It simply means that you recognize the truth of the moment. The situation is already here, and resisting it will not change that fact. When you stop mentally arguing with reality, something important begins to happen inside your mind. The tension starts to loosen, and your thoughts become calmer and more focused. Many people believe that resisting a problem will make them stronger, but in reality, it often makes the mind weaker and more chaotic. When the mind is busy complaining about the situation, blaming others, or wishing things were different, it cannot think clearly about what to do next. Acceptance removes this unnecessary struggle. Once you accept that the moment is happening, your attention naturally shifts from emotional resistance to practical thinking. Imagine a person caught in a sudden storm while traveling. If they spend all their energy complaining about the rain and wishing the weather were different, they will remain stuck in frustration. But the moment they accept that the storm is happening, their mind becomes free to think clearly about what to do next. They may look for shelter, adjust their plan, or calmly wait for the storm to pass. Acceptance allows the mind to focus on solutions instead of emotional resistance. In the same way, when life places you in a difficult situation, the first step toward clarity is accepting the moment exactly as it is. This acceptance creates mental space. In that space, your thoughts become more organized, your emotions settle down, and your ability to think wisely returns. You stop wasting energy fighting the situation and begin directing that energy toward understanding it and responding in the best possible way. The more you practice accepting the present moment, the stronger and calmer your mind becomes. Over time, situations that once felt overwhelming will begin to feel manageable. Instead of panicking or resisting, you will naturally move into a state of calm awareness where you can think clearly and act wisely even under pressure. 5. Focus on the next wise step. When people face pressure, the mind often begins to travel far into the future. Instead of focusing on the present moment, it starts imagining every possible outcome that could happen. It creates worst-case scenarios, fears of failure, and thoughts about what others might say or think. Very quickly, the situation feels overwhelming because the mind is trying to solve dozens of imaginary problems all at once. This mental overload is one of the biggest reasons people lose clarity under pressure. Buddhist wisdom teaches a simple but powerful approach for moments like these. Focus only on the next wise step. Instead of trying to control the entire future, bring your attention back to what can be done right now. The present moment is the only place where real action is possible. When the mind learns to concentrate on the next small step rather than the entire journey, pressure begins to feel lighter and more manageable. Think about climbing a very high mountain. If a person constantly looks at the distant peak and thinks about how far away it is, they may feel discouraged or overwhelmed. But if they focus only on the next step in front of them, the journey becomes easier to manage. One step leads to another, and slowly the climber moves higher without feeling crushed by the size of the challenge. Life works in a very similar way. When you focus on the next wise action instead of the entire problem, the mind remains calm and productive. In moments of pressure, ask yourself a simple question: what is the next helpful thing I can do right now? It might be gathering more information, taking a moment to think calmly, speaking carefully, or making one small decision that moves the situation forward. By narrowing your focus to this next step, you prevent the mind from becoming overwhelmed by things that have not even happened yet. Another benefit of focusing on the next wise step is that it keeps the mind grounded in reality instead of imagination. The future often appears frightening because the mind fills it with uncertainty. But when you bring your attention back to the present action, fear begins to lose its power. You are no longer trapped in endless thoughts about what might go wrong. Instead, you are calmly moving forward one step at a time. This approach also builds confidence. Every time you take a wise step, even a small one, you create momentum. The mind begins to feel more capable and more stable. Solutions that once seemed impossible begin to appear because you are giving your mind the space and focus it needs to think clearly. Buddhist teachings often remind us that great results are built from small, mindful actions. A calm mind does not rush or panic. It simply takes the next wise step with awareness and patience. Over time, these small steps lead to powerful outcomes. When you train yourself to focus on what can be done right now, instead of worrying about everything that could happen later, you develop a steady and clear mind that can move through pressure with confidence and wisdom. 6. Detach your identity from the outcome. One of the deepest reasons people feel intense pressure in difficult situations is because they connect their personal value to the result of what is happening. When a person believes that their worth, reputation, or identity depends on a single decision or outcome, the mind naturally becomes tense and fearful. Thoughts such as, "What if I fail?" or "What will people think about me?" begin to fill the mind. These thoughts create heavy psychological pressure, and under that pressure, it becomes very difficult to think clearly or act wisely. Buddhism teaches a powerful lesson about identity and attachment. According to Buddhist wisdom, much of human suffering comes from attaching our sense of self to things that are constantly changing. Results, success, failure, and other people's opinions are all temporary and unstable. When you attach your identity to these things, your peace becomes fragile because it depends on circumstances that you cannot fully control. For example, imagine someone who believes that their entire value depends on winning a competition, getting approval from others, or achieving a certain result. In moments where that result feels uncertain, their mind becomes overwhelmed with fear. Instead of focusing on the task itself, their thoughts become trapped in anxiety about the outcome. Their attention shifts away from clear thinking and toward protecting their ego or reputation. Buddhism encourages a different way of looking at life. Instead of defining yourself by the result, focus on the quality of your actions and your state of mind. Your worth is not determined by whether a situation goes perfectly or not. It is reflected in how you handle the moment, how wisely you respond, and how calmly you remain under pressure. When you detach your identity from the outcome, something very powerful begins to happen inside your mind. The heavy weight of fear starts to disappear. You no longer feel like your entire value is at risk in every difficult situation. This freedom allows your mind to become more relaxed and focused. Instead of worrying about protecting your image, you begin concentrating on understanding the situation and responding in the best possible way. This mindset also makes you more resilient. When a person believes their identity depends on success, even a small mistake can feel devastating. But when you understand that outcomes are simply part of life's flow, success and failure both become learning experiences rather than threats to your identity. This perspective allows you to stay calm and thoughtful even when things do not go exactly as planned. Another benefit of detaching from the outcome is that it brings more confidence into your actions. When fear of failure disappears, you are able to act with greater courage and clarity. Your decisions become guided by wisdom rather than desperation. Instead of trying to control every possible result, you focus on doing your best in the present moment. Buddhist teachings remind us that life is always changing, and no outcome can permanently define who we are. When you stop tying your identity to results, you gain something far more powerful than success itself: inner stability. With this stability, your mind remains calm and clear even when facing uncertainty, pressure, or challenges. In the end, true strength comes not from controlling every outcome, but from maintaining a steady and wise mind regardless of what happens. When you learn to detach your identity from results, pressure loses its power over you, and clarity naturally returns to guide your decisions. 7. Train the mind daily, not only during crisis. Many people want to remain calm and think clearly when they are under pressure, but they rarely train their mind when life is peaceful. They hope that when a difficult situation suddenly appears, they will automatically respond with wisdom and clarity. But the mind does not work that way. Just like the body becomes strong through regular exercise, the mind becomes stable only through consistent training. If the mind is never trained during calm moments, it will struggle when pressure appears. Buddhism has always emphasized that mental discipline must be practiced daily. The Buddha taught that the mind is naturally restless, easily influenced by fear, anger, worry, and desire. When the mind is left untrained, it reacts automatically to situations. A single stressful moment can cause panic, confusion, or impulsive decisions. But when the mind is trained through awareness and mindfulness, it becomes steady and balanced even in difficult circumstances. Think of the mind like a lake. When the water is constantly disturbed by wind and waves, the surface becomes rough and unclear. In that condition, you cannot see what lies beneath the water. But when the lake becomes still and calm, the water becomes clear, and everything beneath the surface becomes visible. The human mind works in a very similar way. When it is filled with constant distractions, emotional reactions, and uncontrolled thoughts, clarity disappears. But when the mind becomes calm and steady, understanding begins to appear naturally. Training the mind does not require anything complicated. In Buddhism, one of the simplest and most powerful practices is mindfulness. Mindfulness means paying attention to the present moment with awareness and without judgment. Instead of letting your mind constantly wander between the past and the future, you learn to bring your attention back to what is happening right now. This simple practice gradually strengthens the mind and increases your ability to remain calm. Meditation is one of the most common ways people train their mind in Buddhist practice. During meditation, a person sits quietly and focuses their attention on something simple, often the breath. At first, the mind will wander constantly because it is used to chasing thoughts and distractions. But with patience and practice, the mind slowly becomes more focused and stable. Over time, this training strengthens your awareness and helps you observe your thoughts instead of being controlled by them. This daily mental training becomes extremely valuable when pressure appears in life. When a person who practices mindfulness faces a stressful situation, their mind is already familiar with calmness and awareness. Instead of reacting immediately, they naturally pause and observe what is happening. Their mind does not panic as easily because it has already been trained to remain steady. Another important aspect of training the mind is learning to observe emotions without becoming controlled by them. In daily life, people experience many emotions such as frustration, fear, disappointment, and anger. If the mind is not trained, these emotions quickly take control of behavior. But when a person practices mindfulness regularly, they begin to recognize these emotions as temporary mental states. They learn to observe them without immediately reacting to them. For example, imagine someone who becomes angry during a stressful conversation. If their mind is untrained, they may speak harshly or react impulsively. But a trained mind recognizes the feeling of anger as it arises. Instead of being controlled by the emotion, the person notices it and allows it to pass. This awareness creates space for wiser responses. Training the mind daily also improves patience and emotional balance. Modern life constantly encourages speed, distraction, and immediate reactions. People check their phones repeatedly, rush through tasks, and rarely allow their mind to rest. Over time, this constant stimulation weakens the mind's ability to remain calm. Buddhism teaches the opposite approach. It encourages slowing down, observing thoughts, and developing inner stillness. Even a few minutes of mindfulness practice each day can make a significant difference. When you take time to sit quietly, breathe slowly, and observe your thoughts, you are strengthening your mental stability. This stability becomes your foundation during difficult moments. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, you will have the ability to pause, observe, and think clearly. Another powerful benefit of daily mental training is increased self-awareness. Many people go through life reacting to situations without understanding their own thoughts or emotions. They become frustrated, anxious, or fearful without realizing why. But mindfulness helps you become more aware of your inner world. You begin to recognize patterns in your thinking and emotional reactions. This awareness gives you greater control over how you respond to life's challenges. When pressure appears, you will recognize the thoughts that try to create panic or fear. Instead of believing those thoughts automatically, you will observe them calmly and return your attention to the present moment. Over time, this daily practice transforms the mind in powerful ways. Situations that once felt overwhelming begin to feel manageable. Stressful moments that once caused panic begin to feel like opportunities to apply your awareness. You develop a quiet confidence that comes from knowing your mind is strong and stable. Buddhist teachings often compare mental training to strengthening a muscle. At first, progress may feel slow, and the mind may still wander or react emotionally. But with consistent practice, the mind becomes stronger, calmer, and more disciplined. Eventually, this training becomes part of your natural way of living. When a crisis or difficult situation appears, a trained mind does not collapse under pressure. Instead, it becomes even more focused and aware. It pauses before reacting, observes the situation clearly, and responds with wisdom rather than panic. This is the true purpose of mental training in Buddhism, developing a mind that remains steady regardless of what life brings. In the end, clarity under pressure is not created in the moment of crisis. It is built slowly through daily practice and awareness. Every time you take a moment to observe your breath, calm your thoughts, or practice mindfulness, you are strengthening the foundation of your mind. And when the difficult moments of life inevitably arrive, that trained mind becomes your greatest strength. Instead of being overwhelmed by pressure, you will be able to remain calm, see the situation clearly, and respond with wisdom, patience, and inner stability. 8. See pressure as a teacher, not an enemy. Many people spend their lives trying to avoid pressure. They see stressful situations as something negative, something that should not exist in their lives. When pressure appears, their first reaction is resistance. They wish the moment would disappear. They complain about the difficulty, and they begin to feel overwhelmed by the challenge in front of them. But Buddhism offers a completely different perspective. Instead of seeing pressure as an enemy, it teaches us to see pressure as a teacher. In Buddhist philosophy, every difficult moment carries an opportunity for growth. Challenges are not simply obstacles placed in our path to make life harder. They are situations that reveal the true condition of our mind. When everything in life is comfortable and easy, it is very simple to feel calm and confident. But comfort does not truly test the strength of the mind. Pressure is what reveals how stable or unstable the mind really is. Imagine a sword being forged in fire. If the metal is never exposed to heat and pressure, it will remain weak and fragile. The intense heat and hammering shape the metal into something strong and durable. In a similar way, pressure shapes the human mind. Difficult moments expose our fears, our impatience, our emotional reactions, and our habits of thinking. While this may feel uncomfortable, it is also an opportunity to become stronger and wiser. When you begin to see pressure as a teacher, your relationship with challenges starts to change. Instead of immediately reacting with fear or frustration, you become curious about what the moment is trying to show you. Perhaps the pressure is revealing that your mind becomes impatient when things do not go as planned. Perhaps it is showing you how easily fear can take control of your thoughts. Or perhaps it is giving you a chance to practice calmness and awareness in a difficult situation. Buddhism teaches that awareness is the first step toward transformation. When you observe your reactions during moments of pressure, you begin to understand your mind more deeply. You start to see patterns in how you think and behave when things become stressful. This understanding allows you to gradually change those patterns and develop a stronger, calmer mind. Another important lesson that pressure teaches is patience. Modern life often encourages people to expect quick results and easy solutions. But many meaningful achievements in life require patience and perseverance. Pressure forces us to slow down and face challenges with determination. Instead of running away from difficulty, we learn to stay present and work through the situation step by step. Pressure also strengthens resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover and adapt when life becomes difficult. A person who has never faced challenges may struggle greatly when something unexpected happens. But someone who has experienced pressure and learned from it becomes mentally stronger. They understand that difficulties are temporary and that every challenge carries the possibility of growth. Buddhist teachings often remind us that life is constantly changing. Moments of ease and moments of difficulty both come and go. When we try to avoid pressure completely, we are trying to avoid a natural part of life. Instead of resisting these moments, Buddhism encourages us to face them with awareness and courage. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to deepen our understanding and strengthen our inner stability. When you begin to approach pressure with this mindset, something remarkable happens. The situations that once felt threatening begin to feel meaningful. Instead of seeing pressure as something that destroys your peace, you begin to see it as something that develops your wisdom. Every stressful moment becomes a training ground for your mind. For example, imagine a person facing a difficult conversation with someone at work. An untrained mind may react with anger, fear, or defensiveness. But a person who sees pressure as a teacher will approach the situation differently. They will observe their emotions, remain calm, and treat the moment as an opportunity to practice patience and understanding. The situation becomes less about winning or losing and more about learning and growing. Another example might be facing a major life decision. Pressure often appears when we must choose between uncertain paths. Instead of seeing this pressure as something negative, we can view it as a sign that the moment is important. The challenge encourages us to slow down, think carefully, and reflect deeply on our values and intentions. In this way, pressure helps guide us toward wiser decisions. It is also important to understand that pressure does not last forever. Just like storms pass through the sky, difficult moments eventually fade. When we remain calm and patient during these times, we develop confidence in our ability to handle future challenges. Each experience strengthens the mind and prepares us for the next stage of life. Over time, a person who practices this mindset becomes much more stable and balanced. Pressure no longer feels like something that must be avoided at all costs. Instead, it becomes a natural part of personal growth. Challenges are welcomed as opportunities to practice mindfulness, patience, and wisdom. This perspective transforms the way you experience life. Instead of constantly searching for comfort and avoiding difficulty, you begin to see value in every experience. Easy moments bring peace and rest, while difficult moments bring growth and understanding. Both become essential parts of your journey. When the mind learns to see pressure as a teacher, fear begins to lose its power. You realize that every challenge contains a lesson, and every stressful moment has the potential to strengthen your character. Rather than feeling overwhelmed by pressure, you begin to approach it with curiosity and calmness. In the end, the purpose of pressure is not to break you. Its purpose is to reveal the strength that already exists within you. When you meet these moments with awareness, patience, and courage, they shape your mind into something more stable, wise, and resilient. And once you truly understand this lesson, pressure will no longer feel like an enemy in your life. Instead, it will become one of your greatest teachers, guiding you toward deeper wisdom and inner strength. 9. Build inner stillness so the mind cannot be shaken. One of the deepest teachings in Buddhism is the importance of developing inner stillness. Inner stillness means creating a calm and stable center within your mind that does not easily react to every situation. When a person has not developed this inner stability, their mind becomes easily disturbed by external events. A small problem can feel overwhelming, criticism from others can cause anger or sadness, and unexpected situations can quickly create panic. The mind becomes like a leaf in the wind, constantly moving in whichever direction circumstances push it. Pressure becomes overwhelming for many people because their mind has no stable center. Every challenge shakes their emotions and disrupts their thinking. When something stressful happens, their thoughts race, their emotions take control, and clarity disappears. Buddhism teaches that true strength does not come from controlling the outside world, but from building a mind that remains steady, regardless of what happens around it. Inner stillness is not about becoming cold or emotionless. It means developing a calm awareness that allows you to experience life without being controlled by every emotional reaction. When the mind becomes still, it gains the ability to observe situations clearly instead of being overwhelmed by them. This stillness acts like an anchor that keeps the mind grounded even when life becomes turbulent. Imagine a deep ocean during a storm. On the surface, the waves may be strong and chaotic, but deep beneath the surface, the water remains calm and undisturbed. The human mind can develop this same quality. When a person cultivates inner stillness, stressful situations may still occur, but they do not disturb the deeper stability of the mind. Many people believe that calmness comes from having a life without problems. They think peace will appear once everything around them becomes perfect. But Buddhism teaches that true peace does not depend on external circumstances. Life will always contain uncertainty, change, and unexpected challenges. Waiting for life to become perfect before feeling calm is like waiting for the ocean to stop moving before learning to swim. Inner stillness is developed by training the mind to remain aware and balanced, even when things are not going according to plan. This training begins with simple practices such as mindfulness and meditation. By regularly observing your breath, your thoughts, and your emotions, you gradually learn to create distance between your awareness and your reactions. When pressure appears in your life, an untrained mind immediately becomes tangled in thoughts and emotions. It may start imagining negative outcomes, worrying about the future, or reacting with frustration. But a mind that has developed inner stillness does something very different. Instead of immediately reacting, it observes the situation calmly and allows emotions to settle before making decisions. This ability to remain still and aware during stressful moments gives you a powerful advantage. When your mind is calm, you can see solutions more clearly. You can understand the situation without exaggerating the problem, and you can respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Many of the wisest decisions in life come from moments of calm reflection rather than emotional reaction. Another benefit of inner stillness is emotional resilience. Life inevitably brings criticism, disappointment, and unexpected difficulties. Without inner stability, these experiences can deeply disturb a person's peace of mind. But when you develop stillness within yourself, these situations lose much of their power over you. You begin to see them as temporary events rather than personal attacks on your happiness. For example, imagine someone receiving harsh criticism at work. A restless mind may react with anger, defensiveness, or self-doubt. But a still mind pauses and observes the situation carefully. Instead of reacting emotionally, it asks whether there is something useful to learn from the feedback. If the criticism is helpful, the person grows from it. If it is unfair, the person remains calm because their sense of self is not dependent on the opinions of others. Inner stillness also strengthens patience. When the mind is constantly rushing and reacting, it becomes impatient with challenges and uncomfortable emotions. But a calm mind can remain present even during uncertainty. It understands that many problems require time and thoughtful action rather than immediate solutions. Developing inner stillness does not happen overnight. It is a gradual process that requires consistent practice and awareness. Each moment you choose to pause instead of reacting, each time you observe your breath instead of following anxious thoughts, you are strengthening this stability within your mind. Over time, these small practices build a powerful foundation of calmness and clarity. As inner stillness grows, pressure begins to affect you less and less. Situations that once caused panic or confusion begin to feel manageable. Your mind learns to stay grounded even when circumstances are difficult. Instead of being pushed around by stress and emotions, you remain centered and aware. This quality of stillness also brings a deeper sense of confidence. When you know that your mind can remain calm under pressure, you stop fearing challenges. Difficult moments become opportunities to apply the stability you have developed. Rather than avoiding pressure, you begin to trust your ability to handle it wisely. Buddhist teachings often describe the ideal mind as being like a strong mountain. Storms may come and go, winds may blow fiercely, but the mountain remains steady and unmoved. When you cultivate inner stillness, your mind begins to develop this same strength. External events may still occur, but they no longer shake your inner balance. In the end, building inner stillness is one of the greatest forms of strength a person can develop. It allows you to move through life with calm awareness instead of constant reaction. It gives you the ability to think clearly when others are overwhelmed by pressure, and it creates a deep sense of peace that does not depend on the changing conditions of the outside world. When your mind becomes still and steady, pressure no longer controls your thoughts or actions. Instead, it becomes just another experience that you can observe calmly and respond to with wisdom. This is the true power of inner stillness, a mind that remains clear, balanced, and unshaken even in the most difficult moments of life. 10. Respond with wisdom, not reaction. One of the most important lessons Buddhism teaches about pressure is the difference between reacting and responding. Many people believe these two things are the same, but in reality they are very different. A reaction is something that happens automatically. It is quick, emotional, and often driven by fear, anger, or stress. A response, on the other hand, comes from awareness. It is thoughtful, calm, and guided by understanding rather than impulse. When people are under pressure, their mind naturally moves toward reaction. The brain senses a threat and immediately tries to protect itself. This can lead to defensive behavior, angry words, rushed decisions, or actions that are later regretted. In these moments, the mind becomes controlled by emotion instead of guided by wisdom. The situation may not even be extremely serious, but the reaction of the mind can make it much worse. Buddhism teaches that a wise person does not live by reactions. Instead, they learn to respond with awareness. The key difference lies in the moment of mindfulness that appears between the situation and the action. When a person has trained their mind, they do not immediately allow emotions to control their behavior. Instead, they pause, observe their thoughts and feelings, and then choose the most appropriate response. Imagine someone insulting you during a stressful conversation. An automatic reaction might be anger. The mind quickly wants to defend itself, raise its voice, or respond with another insult. But this reaction usually increases conflict and creates more tension. A mindful response works differently. Instead of immediately reacting, the person notices the rising emotion inside them. They take a moment to breathe, observe their feelings, and consider what response will actually improve the situation rather than worsen it. This ability to respond instead of react is one of the greatest forms of mental strength. It requires awareness, patience, and emotional discipline. But the more a person practices mindfulness, the more natural this skill becomes. Over time, the mind learns to remain calm even when faced with challenging situations. One of the reasons reactions are so common is because people often live on autopilot. Their thoughts and behaviors are guided by habits rather than conscious awareness. When something unexpected happens, the mind follows its usual emotional pattern. If a person tends to react with anger, frustration, or fear, that reaction appears automatically without much thought. Buddhist practice helps break this automatic cycle. Through mindfulness, people begin to notice their thoughts and emotional patterns more clearly. Instead of being controlled by these patterns, they gain the ability to observe them. This awareness creates freedom. When you can observe your emotions, you can choose whether to act on them or not. Responding with wisdom also means considering the long-term effects of your actions. Reactions are usually focused only on the immediate moment. They try to relieve discomfort as quickly as possible. But wise responses look beyond the moment. They ask questions such as, will this action improve the situation? Will these words create understanding or conflict? Is this the most skillful way to handle this moment? This type of thinking requires a calm and balanced mind. When the mind is overwhelmed by pressure, it loses the ability to reflect in this way. That is why mindfulness and mental training are so important. They prepare the mind to remain stable, so that wisdom can guide your actions even during stressful situations. Another important aspect of responding with wisdom is emotional awareness. Many people believe they must suppress or ignore their emotions in order to stay calm. But Buddhism does not teach suppression. Instead, it encourages understanding. Emotions such as anger, fear, or frustration are natural parts of human experience. The goal is not to eliminate them completely, but to recognize them without allowing them to control your behavior. When you become aware of an emotion as it arises, you gain the power to pause and observe it. You might notice tension in your body, faster breathing, or certain thoughts appearing in your mind. Simply recognizing these signs can prevent the emotion from taking full control. By acknowledging the feeling calmly, you allow it to pass without reacting impulsively. Responding with wisdom also strengthens relationships and communication. Many conflicts between people happen because both sides react emotionally rather than responding thoughtfully. When someone reacts with anger, the other person often reacts the same way, creating a cycle of conflict. But when one person remains calm and responds with understanding, the situation often begins to settle. A wise response does not mean agreeing with everything or avoiding difficult conversations. It means approaching situations with clarity and respect. Instead of reacting defensively, you listen carefully, speak thoughtfully, and aim to resolve the situation rather than escalate it. Over time, practicing this approach changes the way you experience pressure. Situations that once triggered strong emotional reactions begin to feel more manageable. Instead of feeling controlled by stress, you develop confidence in your ability to handle challenges with calm awareness. This transformation does not happen instantly. Like all mental training, it requires patience and practice. Every difficult moment becomes an opportunity to strengthen this skill. Each time you pause before reacting and choose a wiser response, you reinforce the habit of mindful action. Eventually, responding with wisdom becomes your natural way of handling life. Pressure no longer forces you into impulsive reactions. Instead, it becomes a reminder to slow down, observe clearly, and choose the most thoughtful path forward. Buddhism reminds us that our actions shape the direction of our lives. When our actions are driven by uncontrolled reactions, we often create unnecessary suffering for ourselves and others. But when our actions are guided by awareness and wisdom, they lead to greater understanding, harmony, and peace. In the end, the ability to respond with wisdom is one of the greatest strengths a person can develop. It allows you to face pressure without losing clarity, to handle conflict without anger controlling you, and to make decisions that reflect your highest understanding rather than your strongest emotions. When you master this skill, pressure no longer feels like something that controls you. Instead, it becomes an opportunity to demonstrate the calm, awareness, and wisdom that you have cultivated within your mind. 11. Master the art of mental distance. One of the most powerful abilities a person can develop when facing pressure is the ability to create mental distance from the situation. Most people become overwhelmed not because the problem itself is impossible to handle, but because they become completely absorbed in the emotions and thoughts that the situation creates. Their mind becomes tangled in worry, fear, frustration, and self-doubt. The more they think about the problem in this emotional way, the bigger and heavier it begins to feel. Buddhism teaches a powerful principle that can completely change how we experience stressful situations. This principle is the ability to step back mentally and observe what is happening instead of becoming trapped inside it. When you create mental distance, you do not ignore the situation or pretend it does not exist. Instead, you change the way you relate to it. Instead of being inside the storm of your thoughts and emotions, you step back and watch the storm from a calm and steady place. Imagine watching heavy rain through a window. The storm may be intense outside, but inside the room you remain dry and protected. Mental distance works in a similar way. The pressure may still exist, but your mind no longer feels overwhelmed by it because you are observing it from a calmer perspective. Many people believe their thoughts are always correct reflections of reality. When the mind says something is terrible, dangerous, or impossible, they immediately believe it. But Buddhism teaches that thoughts are not always accurate. They are simply mental events that appear and disappear. When pressure rises, the mind often produces exaggerated thoughts such as, "Everything is going wrong," or "I cannot handle this," or "This situation will ruin everything." These thoughts can feel very real, but they are often just temporary reactions created by stress. Mental distance allows you to recognize these thoughts without automatically believing them. Instead of saying, "This situation is impossible," you begin to notice, "My mind is having the thought that this situation is impossible." This small shift in awareness may seem simple, but it creates a powerful change in how the mind experiences pressure. When you observe your thoughts rather than becoming controlled by them, they begin to lose their power. You start to see them as passing mental events instead of absolute truths. Some thoughts may contain useful information, but many are simply emotional reactions that will fade if you allow them to pass. Buddhist meditation trains the mind to develop this ability. During meditation, people learn to observe their thoughts without chasing them or fighting them. They notice thoughts appear, remain for a short time, and eventually disappear. This practice teaches an important lesson. Thoughts are temporary. They are not permanent realities. When you bring this awareness into stressful situations, your mind becomes far more stable. Instead of becoming overwhelmed by every thought or emotion that arises, you simply observe them with calm awareness. This observation creates space between you and the pressure you are experiencing. Mental distance also helps you see situations more objectively. When the mind is emotionally involved, it often exaggerates problems or ignores possible solutions. But when you step back and observe the situation calmly, your perspective becomes clearer. You begin to see details that were hidden by emotional reactions. You may notice opportunities, solutions, or alternative approaches that were invisible when your mind was overwhelmed. Another benefit of mental distance is that it protects your emotional energy. Many people exhaust themselves mentally by constantly replaying stressful situations in their mind. They imagine conversations, predict negative outcomes, and analyze every possible mistake. This cycle of overthinking drains the mind and increases anxiety. But when you learn to observe your thoughts instead of feeding them, the mind becomes much quieter and more balanced. For example, imagine a person facing an important decision. If their mind becomes fully absorbed in worry, they may feel trapped between fear and confusion. Their thoughts may jump endlessly between different possibilities, creating stress rather than clarity. But if they step back mentally and observe the situation calmly, they can evaluate the options more clearly. Instead of being controlled by fear, they can analyze the situation with patience and wisdom. Mental distance also strengthens emotional resilience. When difficult situations occur, people often feel personally attacked by life. They believe that every challenge is a reflection of their failure or weakness. But when you develop the ability to step back and observe life more objectively, you realize that challenges are simply part of the human experience. They are not personal punishments, but natural events that everyone encounters. This understanding reduces emotional suffering. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" the mind begins asking more helpful questions such as, "What can I learn from this situation?" or "What is the best way to respond right now?" This shift from emotional reaction to thoughtful observation creates clarity and strength. The practice of mental distance also helps during intense emotional moments. When anger, fear, or frustration appears, the mind often feels consumed by the emotion. But if you have trained yourself to observe your thoughts and feelings, you can recognize the emotion without becoming controlled by it. You may notice the sensation of anger in your body, the rapid thoughts in your mind, or the tension in your muscles. By observing these sensations calmly, the emotion begins to lose its intensity. Over time, this practice develops a deep sense of inner stability. Situations that once caused strong emotional reactions become easier to handle. Your mind learns that not every thought needs to be believed, and not every emotion needs to control your actions. Buddhist teachings often compare the mind to the sky and thoughts to clouds. Clouds may appear, move across the sky, and eventually disappear, but the sky itself remains unchanged. In the same way, thoughts and emotions come and go, but your deeper awareness remains calm and steady. Mental distance allows you to remain in that place of awareness instead of becoming lost in every passing cloud. When you master the art of mental distance, pressure loses much of its power over you. Difficult situations still appear, but they no longer overwhelm your mind. Instead, they become experiences that you can observe, understand, and respond to with clarity. This ability to step back and observe is one of the greatest forms of mental freedom. It allows you to remain calm when others panic, to think clearly when others feel overwhelmed, and to respond with wisdom instead of reaction. In the end, mental distance gives you control over your inner world. Instead of being pushed around by every stressful situation or emotional thought, you develop the calm awareness needed to move through life with stability, clarity, and peace. 12. Develop unshakable presence in the middle of chaos. One of the highest levels of mental mastery taught in Buddhism is the ability to remain fully present even when life becomes chaotic. Most people lose their presence the moment pressure appears. Their mind immediately jumps into the past or the future. They begin remembering past failures, worrying about what might go wrong, imagining worst-case scenarios, or thinking about how others will judge them. In a matter of seconds, the mind leaves the present moment and becomes trapped in a storm of thoughts. When this happens, clarity disappears. The mind becomes scattered and emotional. Instead of dealing with what is actually happening, a person begins fighting with imagined problems that exist only inside their thoughts. This is why pressure often feels much heavier than the situation itself. Buddhism teaches that the present moment is the only place where wisdom can operate. When the mind remains present, it sees reality clearly. It understands what is happening right now, and it can respond with calm awareness. But when the mind leaves the present moment and becomes lost in fear or imagination, confusion begins to grow. Developing presence means training your mind to stay anchored in the moment, even when situations become difficult. It means being fully aware of what is happening around you without allowing your thoughts to run uncontrollably. Presence allows you to observe the situation clearly, understand what needs to be done, and act with stability instead of panic. Many Buddhist masters describe presence as a state of deep awareness where the mind becomes quiet and attentive. In this state, you are not distracted by unnecessary thoughts. You are fully connected with the moment you are experiencing. Your attention becomes focused and steady, allowing you to respond to situations with clarity. Pressure often creates chaos in the mind because it breaks this presence. The moment something stressful happens, people begin overthinking. Their thoughts jump rapidly from one possibility to another. They imagine problems that may never happen and create emotional tension inside themselves. But when a person practices presence, they bring their attention back to what is real in this moment. For example, imagine a person facing an important challenge such as giving a presentation, solving a problem at work, or handling a difficult conversation. An untrained mind may become overwhelmed with thoughts like, "What if I make a mistake?" or "What will people think about me?" These thoughts pull the mind away from the present moment and create unnecessary anxiety. But a person who has developed presence approaches the situation differently. Instead of worrying about the future, they focus on what they are doing right now. They listen carefully, speak thoughtfully, and remain aware of their breathing and surroundings. Their mind stays connected to the present moment instead of becoming lost in fear. This presence creates powerful mental stability. When you are fully present, pressure loses much of its power over you because your attention is focused on action rather than worry. You deal with each moment as it arrives, instead of imagining countless problems that may never appear. Another important aspect of presence is awareness of the body. Buddhism teaches that the body can help bring the mind back to the present moment. When you pay attention to simple physical sensations such as breathing, posture, or movement, your mind naturally returns to the present. For example, when pressure begins to rise, you can focus your attention on your breathing. Feel the air entering your lungs and leaving your body. Notice the sensation of your feet touching the ground or your hands resting on a surface. These simple observations anchor your awareness in the present moment and prevent your mind from being carried away by anxious thoughts. Presence also allows you to observe situations without being immediately controlled by them. When the mind is present, you create a space between the situation and your reaction. In that space, wisdom can appear. Instead of reacting impulsively, you become capable of responding thoughtfully. This is why many Buddhist teachings emphasize mindfulness in everyday life. Mindfulness means bringing full awareness to whatever you are doing in the moment. Whether you are walking, speaking, eating, or working, mindfulness trains the mind to remain present. Over time, this practice strengthens your ability to stay calm, even during difficult situations. When you practice presence daily, your mind becomes less distracted and more focused. You begin to notice when your thoughts start drifting into worry or fear. Instead of following those thoughts, you gently bring your attention back to the present moment. This simple practice gradually strengthens your mental discipline. One of the greatest benefits of presence is clarity. When the mind is present, it becomes like a clear mirror, reflecting reality exactly as it is. You see situations more accurately and understand what needs to be done. Decisions become easier because your mind is not clouded by unnecessary fear or confusion. Presence also creates confidence. When you know that your mind can remain steady in difficult moments, you stop fearing pressure. You trust your ability to stay calm and handle whatever situation arises. This confidence does not come from controlling the outside world, but from mastering your inner awareness. Buddhist teachings often describe a wise person as someone who remains centered, even when everything around them becomes chaotic. Just like the eye of a storm remains calm while strong winds move around it, a trained mind remains stable even during intense situations. Developing this level of presence takes time and practice. It requires patience, mindfulness, and a willingness to observe your thoughts without becoming lost in them. But every time you bring your attention back to the present moment, you strengthen your ability to remain calm and aware. Eventually, presence becomes your natural way of experiencing life. Instead of constantly living in your thoughts, you begin living fully in the moment. Pressure no longer feels overwhelming because your mind stays grounded in reality rather than drifting into fear. In the end, developing unshakable presence is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. It allows you to remain calm in situations where others panic. It helps you think clearly when others feel confused. And it gives you the strength to move through life with awareness, balance, and wisdom. When your mind becomes truly present, chaos around you loses its ability to disturb your inner peace. Even in the middle of pressure, your mind remains steady, focused, and clear. That is the true power of presence, a mind that cannot be shaken because it is fully rooted in the present moment. 13. Turn pressure into a source of inner strength. Many people believe that pressure weakens them. They feel that difficult situations drain their energy, disturb their peace, and make their life harder. Because of this belief, they spend much of their time trying to avoid pressure. They look for comfortable situations, predictable routines, and environments where nothing challenges them too deeply. But Buddhism teaches a very different understanding of pressure. Instead of seeing it as something that weakens you, it can be understood as something that strengthens you. Pressure, when approached with awareness, becomes one of the greatest forces for personal growth. It reveals parts of the mind that would otherwise remain hidden. It shows us where our fears live, where our patience breaks, and where our emotional reactions still control us. These discoveries may feel uncomfortable at first, but they are also incredibly valuable because they show us exactly where we need to grow. Imagine someone lifting weights in a gym. The resistance created by the weights may feel difficult, but it is exactly that resistance which allows the muscles to grow stronger. If there were no resistance, the body would never develop strength. The same principle applies to the mind. Without pressure, the mind rarely develops resilience or discipline. Difficult situations act like mental training that strengthens your inner stability. When you begin to see pressure as a source of growth instead of a problem, your entire perspective changes. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What can this moment teach me?" This shift in thinking is powerful because it turns challenges into opportunities for learning and self-development. Buddhist philosophy often emphasizes that suffering arises not only from situations themselves, but from how we interpret those situations. When we label pressure as something terrible, we create resistance and fear inside our mind. But when we see it as an opportunity to practice patience, awareness, and courage, it becomes something valuable rather than something destructive. For example, imagine a person facing a difficult project at work. If they see the pressure as a threat, their mind may become filled with anxiety and self-doubt. They may feel overwhelmed before even starting the task. But if they approach the situation with a mindset of growth, they may see the challenge as an opportunity to improve their skills, expand their understanding, and strengthen their ability to remain calm under stress. This perspective transforms pressure into a form of mental training. Every difficult situation becomes a chance to practice calmness, patience, and clarity. Instead of feeling defeated by challenges, you begin to use them as exercises for strengthening your mind. Another important benefit of pressure is that it reveals your hidden potential. Many people underestimate their abilities because they have never been tested by difficult situations. When life remains comfortable and predictable, it is easy to stay within familiar limits. But when pressure appears, it often pushes people beyond those limits and forces them to discover strengths they never realized they had. Throughout history, many individuals have discovered their greatest abilities during moments of intense pressure. When faced with challenges that seemed impossible, they found courage, creativity, and determination that had been hidden within them. Pressure often awakens these inner resources. Buddhism teaches that human beings possess incredible inner potential, but this potential often remains dormant until circumstances require it. Pressure can act as the catalyst that awakens this potential. When you are forced to face difficulty with awareness and determination, your mind begins to grow stronger and more capable. Pressure also develops resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover quickly from difficulties and continue moving forward despite challenges. A person who has never faced pressure may struggle greatly when life becomes difficult, but someone who has learned to face challenges calmly develops a deep inner confidence. They know from experience that they can handle difficult situations and learn from them. This resilience creates emotional strength. Instead of being easily discouraged by obstacles, you begin to view them as temporary phases of the journey. Each challenge becomes another opportunity to practice patience and wisdom. Another important lesson pressure teaches is humility. When life is easy, it is possible to believe that success comes entirely from personal control. But pressure reminds us that many aspects of life are unpredictable. Situations may change suddenly, plans may fail, and unexpected problems may appear. These experiences encourage humility and a deeper understanding of the complexity of life. Humility helps the mind remain open and flexible. Instead of stubbornly insisting that everything must go according to your expectations, you learn to adapt and adjust. This flexibility allows you to respond more effectively to changing circumstances. Pressure also deepens your appreciation for calm moments in life. When you experience challenges, you begin to recognize the value of peace and stability. Moments of rest and clarity become more meaningful because you understand how easily they can be disrupted. Over time, a person who embraces pressure as a source of growth develops a powerful mindset. They no longer fear difficult situations as much as they once did. Instead, they approach challenges with curiosity and determination. They understand that each challenge is shaping their character and strengthening their mind. Buddhist teachings often remind us that the greatest transformation happens during moments of difficulty. Just as a seed must break open before it can grow into a tree, the mind often needs to face pressure before it can develop deeper wisdom. When you train yourself to see pressure as a source of strength, you stop running away from challenges. Instead, you begin to face them with calm awareness. You recognize that every difficult moment carries the potential to shape you into a stronger and wiser person. In the end, pressure is not something that exists to break you. It exists to reveal your strength. It pushes you beyond comfort, teaches you patience, and develops the resilience needed to navigate life's complexities. When you learn to transform pressure into inner strength, every challenge becomes part of your growth. Difficult moments no longer feel like obstacles blocking your path. Instead, they become stepping stones that guide you toward greater wisdom, stability, and self-mastery. And once you truly understand this lesson, pressure will no longer feel like something you must escape. Instead, it will become a powerful force that shapes your character and strengthens the calm, disciplined mind that Buddhism encourages us to develop. Life will always place us in moments of pressure. There will be times when decisions feel heavy, when situations become uncertain, and when emotions begin to rise quickly inside the mind. Pressure is a natural part of the human experience. It appears in our work, our relationships, our responsibilities, and even in our personal struggles. Many people spend their lives trying to avoid these moments, believing that peace only exists when life is easy. But Buddhist wisdom teaches a deeper truth. Peace does not come from escaping pressure, it comes from mastering the mind that experiences it. When the mind is untrained, pressure easily turns into panic, confusion, and emotional reactions. Thoughts begin to race, fear takes control, and the situation feels much larger than it actually is. But when the mind is trained through awareness and mindfulness, something powerful begins to happen. The same moment that once created chaos becomes a moment of clarity and strength. Throughout these lessons, we have explored how the mind can remain steady even during difficult situations. By learning to pause before reacting, returning to the breath, observing situations without emotional attachment, accepting reality instead of resisting it, focusing on the next wise step, detaching your identity from outcomes, and training the mind daily, you begin building a foundation of inner stability. These practices slowly transform the way you experience pressure. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by challenges, you begin to face them with calm awareness. Instead of reacting impulsively, you learn to respond with patience and understanding. Pressure no longer controls your actions because your mind has developed the strength to remain balanced. The more you practice these principles, the more natural they become. Situations that once caused anxiety will begin to feel manageable. Moments that once created confusion will begin to reveal opportunities for growth. Your mind becomes clearer, more disciplined, and more resilient. Buddhism reminds us that the mind is like a powerful tool. When it is untrained, it can create suffering even in simple situations. But when it is trained with awareness and wisdom, it becomes the source of peace and clarity, even in the middle of difficulty. The true goal is not to remove pressure from life, but to develop a mind that can remain calm and steady regardless of circumstances. In the end, the greatest power you can develop is mastery over your own mind. When your mind is calm, you can think clearly. When you can think clearly, you can act wisely. And when you act wisely, even the most challenging situations become opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to your peace. Pressure will always exist in life, but with a trained and mindful mind, it no longer has the power to disturb your inner balance. Instead, it becomes a moment where your awareness, patience, and wisdom shine the brightest. That is the true meaning of mastering your mind under pressure.